I saw the legs and it was a human.
Not a real human.
No, it was just a ghost.
This next encounter proves to be a truly terrifying experience for the security guard. A creeping sense of unease washes over him as he makes his way through the building, the air charged with an unnatural static that buzzes in his ears. The closer he gets to the source of this unsettling energy, the harder it becomes for his mind to grasp what he's sensing. He swings his flashlight around, and there, standing in his path, is a dark figure. Its presence both ominous and unknown. No one can explain what or who it was. Miraculously, he escapes unharmed, but the chilling encounter leaves him shaken. A Saudi Arabian police officer, on his regular night shift, encountered something so unsettling that it would remain etched in his mind for the rest of his life. Patrolling the area, he noticed a figure in white, its black hair hanging limp, swaying with each eerie step. The shape was human, but there was something disturbingly unnatural about it. Some would later claim it was a witch, others whispered it was a skinwalker. Whatever it wasn't something that belonged in the world of the living. The figure moved toward the officer with deliberate intent, forcing him to break into a panicked run. As he fled, the figure followed, its pace never faltering, its presence relentless. The security guard has always been cautious around the homeless man, but tonight he decides to hear him out. The man seems sincere, offering an apology. He admits to being on psychotropic medication for schizophrenia, explaining that he hears voices and sees things that aren't real. The man expresses regret for his past actions, and the guard, exhausted from a long shift, lets his guard down, thinking he can finally reason with him.
Oh, look at him, look at him. I'm gonna shoot his ass.
I remember you. You're the security guard of the building, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
I've been having problems with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, man? I want to apologize to you, man.
Okay.
I hadn't had my medicine, man. I'm on psychotropic medicines, man. You know I'm schizophrenia, you know?
Right.
I hear voices, I see things they say this is not really them. And I just want to apologize to you because I was...
The man reaches out for a handshake, and the guard hesitates but complies, believing the situation is diffused. However, he quickly realizes he was wrong. The man's demeanor shifts abruptly as he begins yelling threats and accusations, his anger spiraling out of control. The guard, now on high alert, scrambles to defuse the escalating situation, knowing the encounter has taken a dangerous turn.
I'm working for 12 hours all day. Can you just shake my hand?
Of course, that's all I've been wanting was an apology from you. That's it, that's all. I'm just trying to do my job, sir.
But you know what, sir? I was thinking about something.
Oh! Nigga, Craig, do it. Come on, hey, you going to hey, get the fuck gone.
I'm gonna kill you. I hate your ass. You the Uber driver took my bitch, I got money now.
During a routine patrol at the hospital, a security guard stumbled upon an eerie sight that would haunt him for weeks to come. What seemed like a typical night would soon take a bizarre and unsettling turn. While walking down a quiet hallway, the guard noticed an unattended wheelchair, oddly positioned near the rooms. It wasn't out of the ordinary to see wheelchairs left around, but this one caught his attention for reasons he couldn't immediately explain. He stopped to investigate. His curiosity piqued. As if sensing his presence, the wheelchair began to turn on its own, slowly and deliberately, as if an invisible force was guiding it. The sudden movement made it seem as though the chair was intentionally facing him. The guard's heart must have raced, and without hesitation he fled the scene, his instincts screaming that something was wrong.
See, I. No.
The recorder didn't anticipate his day taking such a wild turn. He spots a police officer struggling to restrain a woman in the parking lot of a restaurant. She's acting erratically, displaying a surprising strength. Her screams are forceful and intimidating, making the officer hesitate. Realizing the urgency, the cop is compelled to act swiftly to regain control. As the scene intensifies, the onlookers are left shocked, the atmosphere thick with tension.
Another police officer has a haunting story that still lingers in his mind. Back in 2008, he was working the midnight shift in the Manoa Valley area on a quiet night when, around 1 a.m., dispatch sent him to investigate a noise complaint at an old graveyard. It was reported that kids were playing there, which struck him as odd.
And dispatch says that there's a noise complaint there, and that there's a complaint of kids playing around in the graveyard. So,
as he drove into the cemetery, he scanned the area but saw and heard nothing unusual until he noticed some movement near a tombstone. The officer stopped, got out, and shone his flashlight on the spot, but when he reached it, there was nothing there. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a soft humming sound behind him that resembled a child's voice. His heart raced as he spun around and shone the light, but again, he found nothing.
Like someone is humming a lullaby or something. So I'm getting a little bit scared, and quick, I turn around and I shine my light.
Feeling uneasy, he decided it was time to leave. However, as he headed back to his patrol car, the radio suddenly blared to life on its own, playing a song without him touching a thing. Alarmed, he rushed to the car, turned off the radio, and looked around. Still, no one was there. He took a deep breath to calm himself, got back in the car, and buckled up.
So, I make my way in the car, put my seatbelt on, and just as I'm about to put my car into reverse, the radio went loud again.
Just as he was about to drive away, the strange occurrence repeated itself. The song started playing again, despite no one having touched the radio. Frustrated yet curious, he decided to let the song finish. The moment it ended, he sped out of the graveyard as fast as he could.
As soon as it was done, I left the area as quickly as I could.
In May 2018, Sergeant Anthony Menino was on patrol in a Chicago suburb when he found himself in a tense situation. His dashcam caught the moment he spotted a small figure darting between lanes of fast-moving traffic, but the image was not clear enough.
Toddler and the fast-moving oncoming traffic. Before the sergeant arrived, the small child was darting dangerously between lanes with heavy traffic, getting...
At first, Menino thought it was a stray dog, but when he got closer, he realized it was a 2-year-old child. But how sure could he be? Without hesitation, he positioned his car between the toddler and the oncoming cars, risking his own safety to save the boy.
He rushed out of his car, taking risks to rescue the child. Videos like this inevitably raise a crucial and unsettling question.
The child's mother arrived shortly after, visibly shaken, and it turned out the family lived just 2 blocks away. The boy had slipped away unnoticed, and without Menino's quick actions, the outcome could have been much worse.
Where were the child's parents? Thankfully, in this case, the boy's mother arrived a few minutes later, understandably distressed about this.
A police officer once responded to a welfare check late at night after a neighbor grew concerned about an elderly woman who hadn't been seen for weeks. The caller explained the woman lived alone and had not answered her door or phone for a while, which got them worried.
Suspicion. The woman's car sat unused, covered in a thick layer of dust. The mailbox overflowed with uncollected letters, and the house itself was dark.
The woman's car was covered in dust, her mailbox was overflowing, and the house was dark. Fearing the worst, the officer began investigating, knocking loudly on doors and checking windows. Everything appeared undisturbed, adding to the very strange silence.
Poor hearing to notice. No response came after a few minutes though. He then walked around to the backyard, checking the windows, but everything seemed undisturbed.
As the officer and the neighbor went back to the front of the house, he noticed a faint glow from a high window. With the help of a bucket, he climbed up to look inside. The television was on, casting a blue glow, but the living room was empty. He scanned the room and saw a blinking phone indicating missed calls, but no sign of life. Then, his breath was caught short when he saw standing right against the glass, inches from his face, the elderly woman.
Breath caught in his chest. Standing right up against the glass, staring directly at him, was the elderly woman. Her face was inches from his.
Shocked, the officer stumbled off the bucket and fell to the ground. When he looked again, the woman had turned away and walked down the dark hallway, disappearing into the shadows. The officer, shaken, told the neighbor not to return and quickly left. He never learned what became of the woman.
And the first drops of rain began to fall, the officer started walking back to his car. Before leaving, he turned to the caller and simply told her, "Don't come back."
An officer who decided to fly his drone at night was surprised by what the drone caught. The drone was put out to scout the area by 1 a.m. in the forest. Suddenly, there was a quick movement, which made the officers alert, and they started asking who was there or who was hiding, but there was no answer. That made them scared, but they kept going on. Still seeing no figure, the officers decided to turn back and see if they could see any figure when a black masculine figure rushed towards them. Due to being scared, they stopped the recording and quickly decided to flee the area.
That is spooky. We'll do another pack in a second here, but what the guys, what the Okay, I'm packing up.
During a high-speed chase, the driver initially deceived the officers into thinking he intended to pull over. However, he suddenly took a sharp turn and sped off. Out of nowhere, the man vanished.
Whole lot stranger. This mysterious driver tricks cops into thinking he's about to pull over, then all hell breaks.
After what felt like a long pursuit, the police spotted the car again ahead of them. This time, the driver made a desperate attempt to outrun the officers, but something was clearly off. He started swerving erratically, as if he were either drunk or possessed.
But in the blink of an eye, the driver comes into view again. This time, he tries to outrun the police rather than just vanish.
Then he straightened out and accelerated down a straight road at an extraordinary speed. As the chase progressed, the driver took a turn that led to what appeared to be a dead end, with a locked fence blocking the way. The officers felt a sense of relief, thinking they would finally catch him, but they were in for a shock. When the car reached the end of the road, it vanished into thin air, leaving the officers with lingering questions. They eventually labeled it the ghost car.
Act fence and nothing more than the vanishing taillights of what the Garden City PD has come to call the ghost car.
This officer is freaking out and seems afraid to walk out the door. You'd think something with two large horns was after him, but you won't believe what he's running away from. Not a ghost, a skinwalker, or anything paranormal, but a squirrel. Now, that's a surprising twist. Armed with his flashlight, a 911 call brought this cop to a forest area to investigate. But he didn't go too far before a heart-wrenching scream left him running right back to his car to get as far away as possible from that creepy scream. Two security guards from Argentina went to investigate a school at night. At that time, they believed that the school was empty, as it should well be, but what they caught on camera left them questioning that. Their camera panned into one of the classes, and that's when their souls almost left their bodies. A chair that was standing on its own suddenly moved toward a desk behind it, as if pulled by something. Now, that was indeed scary, but since they didn't go in to check, it's hard to ascertain the authenticity of the moving chair. But would you want to stick around and find out? The security guard is the last person remaining at the call center. He mindlessly scrolls through the security footage to pass the time, but what he stumbles upon chills him to the core. His eyes fixate on a chair, seemingly ordinary until its shadow begins to move unnaturally.
Watch the chair. Watch the chairs. Shadow.
The longer he watches, the more unsettling the footage becomes. The chair's shadow twists and shifts as if influenced by an unseen force. It becomes clear that whatever presence inhabits the building is far from peaceful. Tension builds as the guard struggles to steady his breathing, unable to tear his gaze away from the screen. The weight of the unknown presses on him, leaving him paralyzed with fear.
God.
The guard expects to be alone as he patrols the quiet, empty mall. But as he makes his rounds, he notices something unusual. A puppet-like figure eerily riding the escalator. The sight sends a chill down his spine, and he knows he has to act.
Olha aí, eu não disse, ó, olha ela ali. Já é a segunda vez essa semana, ó. Eu tive que filmar para mostrar que ninguém acredita em mim. Meu Deus do céu.
He rushes toward the strange figure, intent on stopping it, but just as he approaches, it vanishes. In an instant, the figure reappears near the exit, as though it had teleported. The guard freezes, grappling with the impossibility of what he just witnessed, as the unsettling figure disappears into the shadows.
Meu Deus do céu. Ai, meu Jesus! Ai, 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 meu Deus!
This video, captured in 2019, showed the moment a female police officer encountered the paranormal. The place was already very dark, but she had to investigate it anyway. As she checks out the place, something tugged at her ponytail, pulling it to the side and jerking her head to the side. It was possible that someone ran last and pulled her hair, but upon reviewing the footage, it was clear that she was alone in the building. The cops respond to a dispatch that leads them to an eerie scene. Their initial uncertainty grows as they observe strange, motionless figures. The stillness is unsettling, and they question whether these are humans or something otherworldly.
All with them. 47 or 441. Over.
Guys, just make sure to keep your hands where we can see them, alright?
To resolve their doubts, they test the theory. Once they confirm the figures are indeed human, a wave of relief washes over them. With caution, they proceed to apprehend the individuals, ensuring to keep their hands visible at all times. Despite the tension, the officers maintain control, successfully diffusing the unsettling situation at the scene.
217 down there. 217.
Why don't you guys come up to this barrier right here? Go ahead and put your butts against it.
634. Going to be on north at Buchanan.
This next encounter takes things to a whole new level, and it's enough to make anyone feel uneasy. A security guard's interaction with something otherworldly left more questions than answers. The video shows the guard approaching the line divider, casually moving it aside as though preparing to allow someone through. But here's the twist. The double doors just opened by themselves, and there was no one in sight. Undeterred, the security guard continues, seemingly interacting with an unseen presence. He appears to be speaking to someone, gesturing as though explaining something, though there's no one visible in front of him. His conversation with the invisible figure is calm, almost casual, before he adjusts the divider back into place and walks off, leaving the mystery unresolved. It's a chilling sight, one that leaves you wondering who or what the guard was really speaking to.
This time, an individual managed to capture what he believed to be evidence of the strange happenings in his home to show the police. He recorded bizarre occurrences, such as his guitar playing by itself, his dog barking at unseen objects, items moving on their own, doors opening by themselves, and lights flickering on and off. The most shocking moment came when he heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, the figure he expected to see had vanished into thin air.
He then noticed a ghostly figure appearing in his camera. However, when he would get close to it, it seemed to vanish. The entity would appear as a human and knock on his door, only to disappear into thin air once again. So if you didn't know...
These brave officers approached an abandoned building to investigate a very strange occurrence. Armed with guns and flashlights, they forced their way through a door that was slamming open and shut on its own, despite the calm, windless day. An An officer with a flashlight was shining his light in a specific direction while recording the scene. He repeatedly called out for help, urging anyone nearby to come assist him.
Hey, I got a cryptid over here that won't come out. I need some assistance.
After hearing some movement and a voice from the woods, he shouted for whoever was there to come out with their hands up, but there was no response. Another officer who had just arrived joined in, calling out as well, but to their surprise, they received no answer.
Come out. With your hands up. We have you surrounded.
You better not throw anything.
After hearing a low growl, the officer became convinced that someone was indeed hiding in the woods. Soon, they spotted movement again and continued to inform the individual that they were surrounded and needed to come out, but still, no one responded. Some police officers witnessed something truly disturbing and made sure to capture it on camera. The incident involved a ghost reportedly walking in front of the police station on a Saturday night. The officer on duty was sitting in the surveillance room, monitoring the cameras when he first spotted the figure.
It started out as a pretty typical Saturday night. Espanola police officer Carl Romero was on duty, keeping an eye on the surveillance cameras around.
Initially, he thought it might be an animal until he noticed the legs, which suggested a human shape, possibly a ghost. He immediately reported the incident to his supervisor. Upon investigation, they discovered that there was no way for anyone to have entered the premises since the gates were locked at the time they saw the figure leave.
In the Sally Port.
At first, I thought it was like a polilla, like a fly, a moth. And then I saw the legs and it was a human.
But not a real human.
No.
The detective stated there was no explanation for how the figure appeared and exited through the gates, except to conclude that it was a ghost. Other officers also shared that they had heard strange noises in the area, and there had been several unsolved murders nearby.
An issue with the lighting or a technical glitch. Turns out there are a lot of ghost stories around here.
A lot of our officers have seen certain things. Some of our officers have felt.
In this clip, captured by a police webcam, doors are seen opening and closing on their own. The officer, who was called to investigate, heard voices and footsteps behind him, despite being alone in the area.
When doors seemed to open by themselves, and sudden footsteps were heard right behind one of the officers as he searched upstairs.
A terrified mother from Metro Atlanta called the police department as soon as she witnessed something she described as terrifying. Her security camera captured what appeared to be the ghost of her son. The footage clearly showed a human figure, leaving no doubt that a ghostly presence was present. But who exactly was it?
We asked them about what a mom says she saw in her security footage.
It's definitely unexplainable.
A Metro mom says her home security footage captured her son's ghost.
A police officer shared a disturbing story about his encounter with a demon, admitting it's not something he likes to talk about because it triggers his anxiety. It happened at 4 a.m. when a man approached a clerk, requesting to use their phone to call 911. The man called 911, stating that people had broken into his home and that his wife was inside, so he needed to get back home while police were on the way.
I don't remember the time of the year exactly, but this dude goes to the gas station in town and
The officer quickly rushed to the scene to investigate. Upon arrival, he saw the man emerging from his car with a gun. The officer described the man as being in his 70s and managed to take the gun from him. Another deputy arrived, and they both formulated a plan.
That just doesn't seem logical, that you leave your wife or that multiple people are going to break into the house and it's usually like...
The older man led the officers into his house, but first asked them if they believed in God. The officer confirmed that he did, to which the man replied that was good, but he also believed in the devil. The officers were puzzled, as everything appeared normal from outside, but they proceeded inside anyway. The man apologized for having many candles, explaining that they were his only means of keeping the demons out. However, the officers were confused because they couldn't see any candles.
Calm down, I need your gun, all right? You're not in the right state of mind right now to have that. Just give me your gun, it's okay, you're not in trouble. So he gives me the gun, I unload it, I make it safe, I put the...
A Riverside County deputy found himself in an unexpectedly dangerous situation during a routine traffic stop. He had pulled over a Sienna minivan, but what he discovered next would throw him into a life-or-death scenario.
Hey man! Hey! Where you going? Where you going? Stop really quick! Come here! Put the car in park. Put the car in park, alright? Which way I'll be out with this subject.
As the officer approached the car, he was immediately struck by the sight of the driver bleeding from his left arm, blood staining the seat around him. The man seemed disoriented, or perhaps possessed, but insisted repeatedly that he was fine, his words offering no reassurance. The officer, assessing the situation, decided to act quickly.
How you doing? You hurt? How you get hurt? No, it's okay. It's okay. Step out real quick. Come on, let me help you. Where are you bleeding from? Your arm? Okay, come here. Let me put a tourniquet on you, okay? Which way? This 2-inch gashes on.
With compassion, the officer helped the driver out of the car and quickly wrapped the man's wounded arm to stop the bleeding. He tried to assist the driver into the car for further help, but suddenly, the man reached toward his side. Instinct took over, and the officer sprinted for cover, alert and ready for whatever might come next.
Any weapons on you, man? How'd this happen? What happened?
No, it's good, it's okay.
Dime qué pasó, señor.
No, nada.
¿Cómo te cortaste? A ver un poquito, ¿ok? Pero tengo que poner...
No, it's okay, it's okay.
No, stop.
No, it's okay.
You're bleeding pretty much.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
No, I need you to stop.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
I need you to stop.
Relax. No, it's okay.
Relax. Go ahead, sit down.
No, it's okay.
No, tengo que ayudar, ¿ok? You're bleeding too much, alright? What happened? Hey. Reach for something.
When the officer approached again, the driver was no longer calm. The man, as if controlled by something, suddenly charged at him, knife in hand. With little choice and a split second to act, the officer drew his weapon and fired, bringing the man to the ground. The situation had escalated faster than anyone could have anticipated.
11-11. Looks like he's stabbing himself. 11-11. He's gonna be between Beach and 53rd and Beach. ¿Qué pasó, señor? ¿Dónde está el cuchillo? He's not injured. He's armed. Shots fired. Shots fired. Charge at me with a knife. Shots fired.
The police officer was quietly patrolling the area, scanning his surroundings when a sound pierced the still night, sending a shiver down his spine. It was an unnatural scream, echoing through the darkness, high-pitched and filled with a sense of pure terror. The officer froze, heart racing, before instinct kicked in. He spun on his heel and bolted back in the direction he had come, every fiber of his being screaming for him to escape whatever had made that horrifying sound. Picture yourself walking past a seemingly benign billboard when, out of nowhere, a force materializes and suddenly strikes you. This is the guard's story. His daily path has abruptly turned hostile. An inexplicable presence has taken over the space he navigates every day, disrupting the ordinary with an unsettling intensity. his movements don't appear to be accidental. Instead, they reflect the effects of an unseen external force. This unsettling moment leaves no room for doubt. Something beyond human understanding is at work, casting an eerie shadow over the familiar surroundings.
This police officer shared his experience of dealing with unstable people on the job, which led him to believe he was facing a possessed woman after receiving a call. He and a younger female officer were dispatched to a house in Franklin Hills, where they learned the husband wanted his wife taken to a psychiatric facility and requested an escort.
If there's such a thing as demonic possession, this might be it. And, you know, because you deal with unstable people.
When they arrived, they met the older husband, who explained that his wife had been in a psychiatric home for months. He felt it was time for her to return because she had become aggressive, and he didn't want to fight or hurt her.
He was just looking, you know, the officers to give her a ride. And I was kind of like, man, that's your wife, that's your problem, man, you take her. But I felt like a dick when I got there.
The officers went upstairs to check on the woman and were shocked by what they found. She hadn't eaten or showered in days and had clearly neglected herself. She was just pacing back and forth in the room. The husband warned them to watch their step because there was blood on the floor from where she had been dragging her feet, which had started to bleed.
Up and down, back and forth, just pacing. And he goes, be careful where you step when you go up there, because there's blood along the floor. All right, because
when they finally saw her, she was in a strange, stoic position with wild hair and breathing oddly. As she noticed the officers, she began to walk toward them. At that moment, their son came forward, introducing himself as a Christian rapper with tattoos to protect himself from the demons that had possessed his mom.
Now again, you know, I say demonic or this, if it's something else, it's not like Hollywood, man. They're not crawling on the walls and heads spinning around and these voices and all that cool stuff.
A deputy sheriff was on duty in a small town when he received a call about a traffic accident around 1:30 a.m. The report indicated that a vehicle had overturned in a canal. Upon arriving at the scene with the California Highway Patrol, they located the car, but found no sign of the driver, leading them to believe he had escaped.
Or had likely fled the scene after the accident. But when they got closer to the wreckage, something didn't add up, being that the floor of the canal was muddy.
The muddy surroundings of the canal puzzled them. There were no footprints to indicate how the driver could have left the scene. They split up to search for any signs of him. While inspecting under the car, they discovered the man's body buried in the mud, his shoes surprisingly clean.
Concealed except for the bottom of his shoes, which had somehow remained clean. If it hadn't been for those soles, they might never have found him. As a sheriff,
finding an address on the victim, the deputy set out to notify the family. When he arrived at the house, he heard a voice say, "I have been waiting for you." On the porch sat an elderly woman rocking in her chair. As he tried to explain the situation, she interrupted him, saying she already knew her son had passed away about 2 hours earlier.
Sorry, the deputy began, unsure how she already knew he was there. I'm looking for... I know, she interrupted. My son died about 2 hours ago.
The deputy introduced himself and the woman confirmed her son's identity. She explained that he had been alone during the accident and revealed that he had come to tell her goodbye and that he was sorry. She added that he mentioned a cop would come to meet her soon, which is why she was waiting on the porch. The officer was left speechless, utterly stunned by the encounter.
Visit me soon. So I got up and I've been sitting here waiting for you. The deputy stood there for a moment, completely stunned. He told her how sorry he...
During a quiet night shift at Waialua, Officer Reggie Manoa found himself hearing mysterious footsteps all around him. One night, while on patrol, he encountered a frantic woman who told him her 2 young daughters had gone out to play and hadn't returned. Wanting to help, he jumped into action.
And try to find them. So I went down to Thompson Corner, and there's a cattle gate. So I parked my...
As he began his search, he met an old man who pointed him in the direction of the girls. Following the man's guidance, Reggie walked down the road, and it felt like the footsteps were leading him to the right spot. He also heard rustling in the bushes, which only added to the eerie atmosphere. Eventually, he came across an opening.
So I walked in. After I went through the California grass, it opened up into a patch of holly corn.
He continued walking and discovered a corn farm. Not far from there, he spotted an old abandoned building that resembled a church. Inside, he heard a whisper that he thought might be the girls calling for help. As he passed by, he stumbled upon a graveyard and, to his surprise, saw the little girls playing on their late grandfather's grave. Relieved, Officer Manoa brought them back to their mother, mentioning that some kind of entity had helped him find them.
That someone, something, or some entity allowed me to find these girls by taking me down.
The Capole police station is situated right in the bustling center of the Capole business area. Detective David was on duty one night around 2:30 a.m., chatting with a colleague when he suddenly heard a strange noise coming from the bathroom.
Just general things at the time. We were just making small talk, and I heard this strange noise coming from the bathrooms.
The area where the noise originated was off limits to everyone except officers, so David decided to investigate. However, when he checked it out, he found nothing amiss. After finishing his shift, he went downstairs to share his experience, only to learn that the noise had likely come from Officer Brown, who had tragically passed away at the security post. A trucker was left completely baffled when he got pulled over by a highway patrol officer. What really shocked him was that the patrol car looked like an old 80s model, not like the modern vehicles used today. After the officer issued him a ticket, he simply drove off.
It was odd though, because the police vehicle looked like an older 80s model unit. The officer gave him a ticket and left. Later on, the trucker went to the courthouse to fight it.
Later, the trucker decided to contest the ticket in court. But when the judge saw it, he got really angry. He pointed out that the officer's name and ID on the ticket belonged to an officer who had died on that very freeway nearly 40 years ago.
The judge told him that the officer's name and ID number used on the ticket belonged to an officer that had died on that freeway almost 40 years ago.
Our first clip takes us to a graveyard. A couple of cops got a call to check out the graveyard, and they went to do their job. What happened next was only a reminder that cops are also humans. As they stepped out of their vehicle, armed with their flashlights, they began to go off the road into the graveyard. And that's when it happened. A piercing scream broke the veil of the night, startling them both. They didn't stick around to find out what made that noise, but led for their lives. In a heart-stopping moment, a car was moving at an insane speed, trying to get away from the cops that were after it, but it suddenly veered off the road and stopped.
Stop by, it's going up.
And calls it a day.
At that moment, the cops caught up and immediately went to make an arrest. But what they found was bone-chilling. Nothing. They found nothing. There was no one outside the vehicle, but even more concerning, there was no one in the vehicle. So who or what was driving the vehicle in the first place? Had they tracked a ghost here? No one knows.
Or you should be.
Where is he?
There's no one outside, no one behind the wheel, and the van is locked.
Where's he gone?
It's magic.
He's in the back. He's in the back. He stopped to think he's hiding in the back. There's no one in the driver or passenger seat, and no one's decam that we can see.
This video captured the moment when police officers were left dumbfounded by this clearly paranormal activity. The group of law enforcers had no idea how to handle the situation, which is quite understandable since it's quite unexpected. The video shows workout equipment in a park, but this equipment wasn't just sitting there, it was moving itself as though an invisible person was having a night workout. This can't possibly be the wind's doing. The fact that the equipment continued at the same pace rules out the matter of wind. Left with nothing to do, the officers simply decided to film the incident as it unfolded. Here again, we have a couple of police officers who were called to investigate an unusual disturbance at a cemetery. As they approached, they heard an inhuman scream. The male officer didn't even give it a second thought. He put his life first and fled. It was only then that the female officer realized the seriousness of the situation and followed right after. Some say it's a prank, but a prank like this can easily cause a heart attack. This CCTV footage comes from a Serbian police station. The officers had already been told of the worries happening, but this video confirmed the theories. Gathered around the computer, they watched as a translucency fighter suddenly appeared on the screen and walked around the place like a desolate person in search of shelter. It went from the wall to one room and then back to the wall. What could it be? A ghost? A camera glitch? A camera glitch would not walk back and forth, would it?
To mi žena jedna tako pričala da nju pratilo kad išli na vašar. Ja sam se zabavao. Kao Dragoš ide po baderama i ide za njim.
3 police officers were seated and engrossed in their work, but things were about to go supernatural. One of the cops turned to look at the double doors, probably after hearing it crack. And in that exact moment, one of the doors swung open with an unusual force. The officer couldn't understand why anyone would open the door with such force, but he was about to understand. There was in fact nobody behind the door, and nobody walked in after it opened. 2 other officers stepped out to check, but they found nothing. Are ghosts now visiting police officers?
Some police officers on night duty were chatting while keeping watch when, without warning, both station doors burst open simultaneously with a powerful force. Startled, they jumped to their feet, but nothing walked through the door. The officer's body cam initially captured what appeared to be a routine patrol. Everything seemed normal until the officers noticed a blue vehicle, which had been moving moments earlier, now mysteriously parked by the roadside. Curious, they stopped to investigate.
Almost as mysteriously as it appeared. It was shot via a police officer's body cam during what should have been a very routine traffic.
As they approached the driver's side, they saw a hand pressed against the inside of the window, but when they leaned closer to peer through the glass, the hand vehiculished, and the car was empty.
Like somebody's in the car. I swear to God, I saw somebody in the car.
While driving sometime around midnight, some police officers came across a female figure in white clothes who seemed to be stranded. She was taking a walk, and as soon as she saw the lights from the police vehicle, she turned around. The image the officers saw made them frightened to their bones.
Road well past midnight, a figure appeared from nowhere in the middle of the road, which left onlookers frightened and unable to explain.
The woman had very messy hair, and she was barefoot. There were signs of blood on the floor, and she kept hurting herself with the knife in her hand. Immediately, she started walking towards the police vehicle. At this point, the officers were so scared that they began screaming.
Oh, God! No!
Immediately, they sped off, not wanting any of that drama.
No!
The surveillance camera at this restaurant initially captured what seemed like a calm, uneventful evening, but moments later, it recorded something scary, a ghostly figure right outside the restaurant.
Starting with a horrifying moment in which a ghost is shown on surveillance video outside of a restaurant that is supposedly haunted, which prompts the police to begin their investigation.
About a minute after the sighting, the police were called to the scene to investigate what had triggered the alarm, which went off after detecting movement.
Approximately 1 minute after the ghost was...
One of the co-owners, Adrian Waterman, mentioned that she had witnessed objects mysteriously falling without anyone touching them. This made people, including the police, uneasy. Soon after, rumors started circulating about a woman in white who had been spotted multiple times in the hallways. One person even wrote a poem about her.
One user offered a story about the lady in white as an example of what they thought the ghost might be. Some residents had claimed to see her in the hallways.
It's said that the woman in white had lived in a nearby house where she tragically died in a fire, leaving behind a trail of strange, unexplained events ever since.
Which was built in 1785. However, the residence burned down in 1884 while the woman was inside.
In the early 1980s, a now-serving police officer was working night shifts as a security guard at a large, well-known factory. He was a skeptic when it came to the supernatural, brushing off the circulating rumors.
In the early 1980s, before becoming a state police officer, a man worked security on the night shift at a large, quiet factory. He wasn't really the type to buy into superstitions.
Equipped with only a flashlight, his task was to patrol the factory grounds and ensure everything was in order. One night, while scanning the thick darkness, he noticed a shadowy figure moving in the distance. He paused to focus but ultimately dismissed it as a trick of his eyes.
The tension. He paused, letting his eyes fully adjust, but as they did, the shadow seemed to disappear. Convinced he was just imagining it,
As he continued his rounds and was heading back to his station, he encountered something that shook him, a tall, human-like figure cloaked in darkness. In a panic, he shined his flashlight on it, confirming that the figure was indeed real and unlike anything he'd ever seen. Rattled, he rushed back to his room, locked the door, and stayed inside until morning. At sunrise, he called the factory owner to report the incident and to submit his resignation.
Morning came, he left the factory and immediately called the owner to let him know that he would not be coming back. That was the last time he ever set foot.
The Honolulu Police Department in Waipahu is rumored to be haunted whenever Halloween approaches. A former security guard shared an unsettling experience that adds to the legend.
To share another video, the unexplained paranormal experiences of a former security guard.
During the day, it's a pretty busy place.
He recounted a night when his friend Tony was on duty. While conducting his routine checks, Tony heard a sound like wood banging against wood, which piqued his interest since no one was supposed to be there at that hour.
As he was doing his building checks, he heard a sound like wood clanking together. Now, no one was supposed to be here that night, so
As he moved to investigate, he passed the building housing the canine dogs, where he could hear the animals barking furiously. When he got closer to the SWAT building, he noticed something bizarre. All the wooden doors and windows were slamming open and shut by themselves, remarkably, on a night with no wind.
got near the SWAT house, the noise got louder and louder. As he looked at the building, he noticed that all the wooden shutters were opening and closing.
A few nights later, with the academy empty, Tony decided to sit down and pass the time. Suddenly, he saw a woman in white approaching him. At first, he thought she might be lost and in need of help. So he waved, but she didn't respond and kept coming closer.
Thought the lady may have been lost or needed help. So Tony waved at her to get her attention. But she didn't respond and kept walking toward him. The funny thing...
Then it hit him. He had locked all the doors and gates, so there was no way she could have entered the academy. He stood up to ask her who she was, but as he did, she vehicle-ished right before his eyes. Turning around in shock, he saw an old lady standing directly behind him, staring intently. She began walking toward him.
Yep, the lady in white. And guess what? She starts slowly walking towards him, eyes fixed.
At that moment, Tony was terrified. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. As she approached, she disappeared again. Looking around and finding no one, he sat for a moment to collect himself and call his supervisor. That's when he realized the woman was sitting right in front of him. Overcome with fear, he ran as fast as he could.
And called his supervisor when guess who decides to show up? Yep, the old lady was back, and this time she was sitting right across from him.
The cop is on security duty, but the night takes a terrifying turn. His heart pounds as strange sounds reverberate through the building. He focuses on one particular door, certain it's the source of the unsettling noises. As he draws closer, the door swings open without a sound, but there's no one there. A cold shiver runs down his spine. The realization hits him. He's not equipped to face this alone. The eerie silence of the building and the strange happenings intensify his fear, leaving him wondering what might be hiding in the shadows.
This is what I'm talking about, dude. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I'm here in this building by myself, bro.
During his night shift, a security guard experienced an eerie presence that would make anyone question what they just saw.
I saw it again this time. Watch. It come from, see, there you go. I'm looking dead at it. I guess it came. I waved at it like...
In the footage, a mysterious white beam of light appears, slowly passing through a closed door as if it were nothing. What's even stranger is that the guard seems to notice it, casually waving at the light, as if acknowledging its presence. It was a chilling moment, and the guard's calm reaction only adds to the mystery. Quite a strange encounter, don't you think?
You know, I ain't really getting scared now, shit, so... I'm just tired of seeing it. I guess it's too cold outside, and he was like, you just gonna go inside, go get on a goddamn sweater or something, so it is kind of chilly out here in Chicago right now.
The guard has been hearing strange sounds from the building. Something feels off, so he decides to inspect it. As he checks the premises, he realizes he's not alone. The back door is open again, and he calls out, "Security!" but there's no response. Frustration grows as he wonders how the doors keep opening.
Okay, I'm back. The door was open again. Hello, security. Okay. I don't know how the hell they keep opening these. Hello.
He knows it's his job to ensure the building's security, but the eerie atmosphere tests his resolve. How much is he willing to risk? His job or his life? His unease builds as he mutters to himself about the unsettling situation. Determined not to stick around longer than necessary, he decides to venture further, but an eerie scream sends him off.
To risk for the job over his life.
Okay, guys. I'm really not sure what's going on here. Nope. Yeah. This is some spooky going on here. Nope. This is why my security officer.
In Arizona, a female officer found herself in a life-threatening situation with a crazy knife-wielding man during a routine verbal altercation.
Get out of my... Hey! Put the knife down! Shut your... No! Put the knife down! Shut up! 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 Put the knife down! I'm so serious! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put it on the ground! Sit! Really? Sit on the ground! No! Yes! No, shoot me! Yeah! Shoot me! I'll put it on the ground!
The video captures the tension as the man taunts the officer, walking toward her with a sneer and telling her to shut up while she calmly orders him to drop the knife. The atmosphere is thick with confrontation, but it's the next moment that shocks. With startling speed, the man, as if possessed, suddenly charges at the officer, his intentions clear and deadly. In a split second, she responds with precision and fires, stopping him in his tracks before he could reach her. What began as a simple exchange escalated into a deadly encounter, and the officer's quick reaction saved her life that night.
You stupid little... He's following... Slice your throat! I need another unit. Hey! Put it on the ground! What? Put it on the ground! What on the ground? Put it... The knife! What on the ground? Put the knife on the... Mouth! Put the knife... Put the knife on the ground! Shut up! Put the knife on the ground! Shut up! Put the knife on the ground! Shut up! Put the knife on the ground! 998! 998! Put the knife! I got it on video. Go with us. Fuck that! Hey! Get on! Stay on the ground!
A security officer named Tim began his night shift job, but what awaited him was far from typical. His patrols often led him to storage areas, which became hotspots for strange occurrences. One particularly unsettling incident caught on his phone marked the beginning of his bizarre experiences.
Remained a mystery. One particularly strange incident, which Tim managed to capture on his phone, marked just the beginning of his eerie experience.
One fateful night, while monitoring the security camera feeds, Tim noticed something peculiar, a pair of pale feet in the shadows. At first, he overlooked them, but they appeared only after he focused on that spot. The realization unnerved him, making him to record these occurrences more frequently.
On one eerie night, while watching the security camera feeds, Tim noticed...
At one point, he managed to capture an image of what appeared to be the arms and hands of a shadowy entity. Unable to cope with the encounters, Tim decided to resign from his job, hoping to leave behind the frightening experiences that haunted him. Yet, on his final night shift, it seemed whatever dwelled in the storage areas was intent on making this night unforgettable. As Tim prepared to leave, he caught sight of a woman's silhouette in the corner, locking eyes with him. Just as he started to record, the footage abruptly cut off, and the full story may never be known.
Cut off, leaving us hanging. Tim's fate and the real story behind his experiences are still a mystery. The full truth, we may never know, and it's honestly...
Caught on the police vehicle's camera was a peaceful, quiet night as the officers drove along, completely unaware of the recording. Just as they nearly forgot about the camera, It picked up an almost invisible figure darting across the road in Gettysburg Field. Surprised, the officers stopped to confirm what they had just seen. Moments later, the figure zipped across the road again. In the dimly lit hallways of the Central Receiving Division's cell block, Officer Ben Lloyd bravely decided to share his creepy experiences. Decades ago, as a rookie officer, he didn't buy into the stories his senior colleagues told about hauntings in the new building. But one incident made him rethink everything.
Not right.
I mean, seriously. She laughed at me, said I was hallucinating. But I know what I saw.
While doing his routine checks in the cell block, he heard a male voice calling him from down the hallway. Initially, he brushed it off and told the voice to hang on, but it kept insisting, "Officer." Thinking it might be an emergency, he decided to check it out. The voice grew louder as he got closer, echoing his own responses. But when he finally reached the row of cells, the voice just cut off, plunging him into silence. Peeking into the empty cells, he saw that all the doors were wide open, clearly indicating they were unoccupied.
The voice suddenly stopped. As I looked down the hallway, I noticed that all the cell doors were open.
By the time he reached the last cell and found it empty, a cold chill ran down his spine. Without thinking, he turned and sprinted away, shaken by the whole thing. Then there was another weird incident. During his late-night shifts, his job was to count the arrestees to make sure everyone was safe and sound. One night, while walking by the cells, he noticed one door slightly ajar. It wasn't unusual since they left doors open when cells were empty, but when he looked closer, he spotted a man sleeping inside. Alarmed, he quickly secured the door and reported it to the turnkey officer.
That was open. But this wasn't out of the ordinary. We would leave the doors open when no one was in the cell. But as I walked past...
When he told her what he'd seen, she laughed and said he must be hallucinating. She had just done a head count, and everything looked fine. Determined to get to the bottom of it, they went back to the cell together, only to find the door securely locked and no sign of the man who had been there. The cell was completely empty.
Checked the door and identified who the person was. When we got there, the door was still secure.
On the 14th of August, 2018, the police arrived at this particular house where horrific deeds had been carried out. This time, the police carried some K9 while the whole occurrence was captured through their body cam.
2018, the police came to this residence where unspeakable terror was committed. This time, though, they did not go alone. K9 units along.
Both the police and the K9 started their search for anyone alive or a sign of living in the home. This is the home where the owner of the house had unalived all his family members, and so the home was lifeless. Soon after the search began, the officers could hear some very faint voices that were similar to those of children, probably crying out for someone to help them, but no one was around.
For life in a place where all life had been extinguished.
Police then went up searching all the rooms, but there was no one and no sign of life. The K9 started behaving somehow, giving a hint that something was happening, and the thing happening was not natural.
Those dogs are going to track the scent. So we may be able, if they're still out there. Have they started yet?
A security guard who wrecked overnight was recorded while he was having a conversation with a supposed returning customer. The scary part is that the thing or person being spoken to could not be seen in the footage captured.
Who is he talking to? Dispatch to 329? Yes, sir. Who are you talking to?
After the others in the TV room noticed he was talking to the air, they reached out to him through the walkie-talkie, asking him who he was having a conversation with, and he stated that he was having a conversation with a lady he had seen earlier, and her name was Miss Abigail. The individual in the TV room tried to confirm if he was sure about who he was talking to, because the person he was supposedly talking to died about some years ago. Confused, he asked if the lady in the TV room could not see who he was talking to, and she stated that she could not see anyone. Once the security noticed that, he immediately ran away.
You're saying Miss Abigail? Like, she's been passed on for 2 years now. Miss Abigail she died 2 years.
A police officer, Carl Romero, sat alone at his desk on a tranquil Saturday night at the Espanola police station, watching the surveillance feeds. The monitors buzzed faintly in the stillness, their flickering light the only sign of activity. Romero, lulled by the routine monotony of his shift, barely noticed the faint disturbance on one of the screens, but then it caught his eye.
It started out as a pretty typical Saturday night. Espanola police officer Carl Romero was on duty, keeping an eye on the surveillance cameras around the station, when he saw something in the sally port.
At first, I thought it was like a polilla, like a fly, a moth, and then I saw the legs and it was a human.
Initially, he assumed it was a moth, an ordinary nuisance during night shifts. But something felt off. He leaned closer, narrowing his eyes. This wasn't a moth. It wasn't even remotely close. The figure on the screen moved like a shadow given life, its unnatural gait unmistakable. It had legs that bent and shifted too smoothly, like water trying to imitate human motion.
But not a real human.
No, it was just like those.
So Romero reported it and told his supervisors. Detectives showed us the camera that captured the image. They say there is no...
Romero froze as the figure approached the station's gated entryway. It glided forward with eerie purpose, passing through the heavy iron gates as though they weren't there. Normally, any entry or exit would set off alarms, the clanging of metal echoing through the halls. But this time, there was only silence. The gates stood undisturbed, oblivious to the figure's passage.
The secured area without an open gate and alarm sounding.
You can see it walk through. It walks in the direction of the old transport cages, and there's not really any way for it to get out through there, but it seems to walk right through that.
Detectives say there's no logical explanation for this, not an issue with the lighting or a technical glitch. Turns out,
on screen, the figure melted into the station's shadows, reappearing just as effortlessly. Its movements were smooth, yet unnervingly unnatural, as though it existed halfway between the physical world and something entirely beyond it. Romero's pulse quickened. He felt a cold dread settle over him, a chilling certainty that he was witnessing the unexplainable. Whether it was a ghost, a skinwalker, or some other entity, it didn't belong in the world he knew.
Ghost stories around here.
A lot of our officers have seen certain things. Some of our officers have felt what appears to be somebody breathing down their neck as they're working on reports in the briefing room.
Cops at the station also report hearing strange noises in the middle of the night and seeing unexplainable images in the lobby area too. Espanola police tell us as far as they know, this is not an ancient burial ground, and they say the police station has been here since 2006, but no inmates have died here. But they do say there have been some unsolved murders nearby.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I do, actually. I do believe in ghosts.
Do you think that was a ghost?
I do. I do believe it was something. It's hard.
A young girl who hung herself in San Francisco was said to appear in a building. Coincidentally, this night guard was in the same building, and he was something that made his blood run cold. He investigated the building in fear, even farming twice, then turned the camera back, but as he looked forward again, he saw someone walk away. You could cut the tension in the air with a knife as he ran to check who it was, but saw no one. One could sense the dread as he searched frantically, but still found nothing. Could it be the girl's ghost? The authenticity of this video is being debated. It shows the moment when a security guard went to check a store full of things. What he didn't expect was to see one of the two dummies leaning forward suddenly and falling flat. That's not all pieces of glass in another corner suddenly scattered on the ground. It's very possible that someone was behind it all, but what if there was no one?
What the f... Whoa!
Hello?
Raul Arguello, a security guard at Tomás Adolfo Duco Stadium in Buenos Aires, Argentina, unknowingly captured a ghost on video while investigating a strange occurrence. For days, the dressing room door had been opening and slamming shut on its own, prompting Raul to take action. Armed with his mobile phone, he set out to uncover the cause, hoping to catch the prankster or intruder on camera. As he opened the door, expecting to find someone, the room was empty. However, as he panned the camera, he captured a fleeting, eerie moment, a shadowy figure swiftly crossing the benches from left to right before vanishing into the wall. In that brief instant, the camera recorded what no one could explain, a ghostly specter.
Para que viera la clase. Dios. Puta que te parió. La puta que te parió. Concha de la lora. La concha de la lora. Pero ¿cómo mierda puede ser que no haya nada hoy? Ya es la tercera vez.
This clip features a cemetery guard sharing his experiences with some strange occurrences. He often hears banging on the door, prompting him to investigate, and he's had several instances where he's heard voices responding when he calls out in the cemetery. One night, he was drawn in by a flickering light inside the church. As soon as he entered, he heard a voice shout, "Get out!" Frightened, he quickly left and declared he was done for the night.
I don't know where the hell these people are, or where... Jesus.
An officer with his body cam on was unaware that it would capture something unexpected. He received a report about loud noises coming from an abandoned dressing area and went to investigate. When he arrived, he was shocked to see the door opening and closing forcefully on its own, with no one around.
Concha de la lora. La concha de la lora. Pero ¿cómo mierda puede ser?
Police are warning the public to stay away from an abandoned psychiatric hospital in Northville, which has been reported as haunted. The facility still contains old files and equipment, and there have been numerous strange occurrences. Authorities have arrested individuals for trespassing and issued fines to anyone who approaches the site. The police emphasize that the building is not safe.
We'll have increased patrols out here.
It is not worth the risk, the thrill, the chills.
That building is not safe. There's debris, there's broken glass all over there, and probably most importantly, there's asbestos.
During a night shift, a police guard was captured on surveillance camera talking to himself. He believed he saw a lost old lady outside, so he waved to her and even opened the door to let her in. However, the footage showed only the guard. No one else was present. After speaking with the woman for a while, he received a call informing him that he was the only one there and that no one else could be seen. Terrified, he ran away as fast as he could.
He runs off the building after the horrifying.
In 2016, locals reported hearing noises coming from an abandoned hospital that had been closed for years. The police launched an investigation, and as they searched the premises, they heard the loud sound of a child crying. However, as they got closer, they found no one there. The officers were filled with fear, unable to explain the eerie cries echoing through the empty building.
abandoned hospital has since become a magnet for paranormal investigators drawn by the stories of unexplained phenomena and the chilling experience of the officers who dared to enter its haunted halls.
A resident called the police after returning home from shopping to find her doors wide open, raising concerns that someone might have broken in. With her family out of town, she felt anxious about the situation. The officer's body cam recorded the search. As the officer made his way upstairs and shined his flashlight on a door, it suddenly opened by itself. A strange movement echoed from the room, but when he checked, there was no one inside. On New Year's Eve in 2022, the police received a disturbing call from a group of friends who were experimenting with a Ouija board, attempting to contact spirits. During the session, their 20-year-old female friend, who was hosting, suddenly became possessed. When the police arrived, they were shocked by what they witnessed. From a distance, they attempted to apprehend her, but she was far too aggressive. At one point, they heard her growling, which only heightened their fear.
Go inside and save her. So, as a final attempt to get her out, they head outside and place a ladder against the side of the room where she hides. This, however, did not go as expected.
In a final effort to get her out of the building, they set up a ladder outside the room where she was hiding. Eventually, she was taken to the hospital, where she began to act normally again. After a series of tests, no abnormalities were found. So what exactly caused her strange behavior?